Good morning, Denver, surrounding Colorado area, and to all our Broncos fans abroad. I'm Devin, and you're watching Breakfast with the Broncos on Buffet Sports.
Uh, yeah, okay, good morning, afternoon, and evening. It's the guy you should believe in. Dropping heat like every season. Underdog like Willie beaming. Classic like Dom singing. Blasting like bombs ringing. I guess I define winning.
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to episode 2 of Breakfast with the Broncos. I'm going to send it over to Walk Talk, Devin, and we'll get back to the desk shortly. Welcome back. This is the second time I've filmed Walk Talk for episode 2. Originally, I was just going to talk about some of the players I'm excited to see this year, as well as just going over the overall theme for the year. And then I had an epiphany that I was being an idiot and that the draft was in a couple days. So why not just wait until the draft concludes and review some of my predictions and talk about the results. We're going to mostly be focusing on Bo Nix and Troy Franklin today, as that's what most people are going to be doing. So we're going to talk about Zach Wilson and clear up, I think, some of the confusion around the trade, because I can't lie, I was a little bit excited when we did get him. He was a second overall pick. He didn't have the start of career that you'd want as a second overall pick in New Jersey, but he was the second overall pick for somewhat of a reason. Was it a reach at the time? Yeah, probably. But nonetheless, there's a reason for it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, the quarterback room in general, and then next week we'll touch on the rest of the draft and talk a little bit more about what the season could look like. And I know, but it's early, but start talking a little bit about next year's draft. So let's jump back to the desk and let's get into detail about our new franchise quarterback and his number one receiver. If you've been living under a rock, the Broncos drafted a quarterback with the 12th pick in the first round of the 2024 NFL draft. His name is Bo Nix, a 5-year starter at Auburn and Oregon, threw for a ton of yards, a ton of touchdowns, and not that many interceptions. So let's talk more in depth about him. So Bo Nix career statistics: he threw for 15,352 yards, 113 touchdowns, with only 26 interceptions on a 66.4% completion percentage. And last year threw for 4,508 yards with 45 touchdowns and just 3 interceptions. Yes, you heard me correctly. 3 interceptions. Of those 4,508 yards, he threw 1,383 of them to the 4th round pick, Troy Franklin. And of the 45 touchdowns, 14 of them went to Troy Franklin. Troy also had 81 receptions on the year and averaged 17.1 yards per catch. And if I forgot to say it, Bo Nix completed 77% of his passes this year. That's a pretty ridiculous duo. And we got Troy Franklin in the 4th round, the second pick in the 4th round. I'm excited. Needless to say, if you can't tell by the smile on my face while I'm reading those ridiculous numbers, I'm excited. Beyond the numbers, it was exciting to hear the way that Sean Payton spoke about Bo Nix on draft night. I'm sure if you're a Broncos fan, you've seen the Pat McAfee clip of him just ranting and raving about Bo Nix and how excited him and his team were while they were doing the stats. They were looking at the film, and by the way, there's plenty of it to go around. He's excited, so I'm excited. Sean seems to know what he's doing with quarterbacks, at the very least, getting them to be competent, i.e. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. You can't control their interceptions, but you can at least make them somewhat respectable to a degree. And I think he's going to do more than just make Bo Nix respectable. That being said, I don't have any idea how you make a college quarterback more comfortable than giving him his number one target for the last 2 years in Troy Franklin, and then his center for 2 years before that. That seems pretty comfortable to me. With that comfortability, though, comes expectations. But I don't want us to start getting crazy with those expectations for two reasons. And this is a good segue into two different things. Number one, with Bo Nix, in 2 years, we're not going to see all of a sudden this leap in arm strength or him scrambling around in the pocket. That's not what the growth for Bo Nix is going to be. And I don't even see it necessarily as growth. It's more of how can Sean Payton elevate Bo Nix, because all the growing is going to be from the head up, or rather the neck up is the term. You can coach Bo Nix into even better decision making. I think he already obviously makes great decisions with a 77% completion percentage, but that's not going to be the same thing in the NFL. But you can certainly coach him to be very proficient in getting the ball out on time, on target in the first or second read. And I don't know how else to say it than that. He's a great fit for Sean Payton. On time, on target, first or second read with a little bit of backyard football in him to extend plays if it needs to be. But he wants to get the ball out within the system. Now, the second part of this, the expectations, right? He is going to be comfortable, and Sean is really excited about him. But don't be surprised if we don't see him till week 8 or 9 even. There's a reason we grabbed Zach Wilson. Now, what is that reason? Two ways to look at it. If Sean is just absolutely blown away and thinks that we can go win games this year with Bo, then maybe Zach doesn't make the roster and Jarrett Stidham assumes backup duties and we see Nix in week 1. I think differently. I think there's a chance that we see Zach Wilson start week 1 or Jarrett Stidham. Take your pick. It doesn't really matter to me, but either one can lose you games. And it's not that we're tanking for a quarterback next year. No. But every draft, it seems, is a wide receiver draft. And if you can tank out the first 8 games of the year to solidify your spot in the top half of the first round to get that weapon and also give Nix time to really get comfortable and confident in the system, why wouldn't you? So don't be surprised if we don't see Nix under center in prime time until week 8 or 9. I wouldn't be surprised by it. And I don't think that it's a bad thing either if we give him time to develop. Now, Troy Franklin, I think, is going to start. That wide receiver room, while not atrocious, is not great either. It's older or way younger, and there's no alpha, in my opinion. So maybe Troy can solidify himself as that number 1 guy, or at least number 2 behind Courtland Sutton. Either way, I'm extremely excited to see what Nix and Franklin do in a Broncos uniform this year. I think it's going to be great. I think we've got our guy. He's an adult. He's ready to go. And he's going to be a good quarterback in this league. Maybe not top 5, maybe not elite, but at the same time, he could be in the top 15, the top half of the league, maybe even top 10. That's to be seen. But I don't see any of the athletic traits or arm that really just sets him apart, like a Patrick Mahomes, obviously, or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. There's not something that jumps off the page other than the fantastic decision-making, which you could argue is really awesome to have when you have a quarterback that's so talented like Josh Allen, but is so dumb, arguably, when it comes to football. So I'm excited about Nix, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. So that's my final verdict on Nix and Franklin. I'm not surprised if we don't see him till week 8, but of course, I would love to see him in week 1. If you think we're going to see Nix start in week 1, go ahead and in the comments, drop a WK1. If you think more like I do, where we might see him in the middle to back half of the year, go ahead and drop a WK8. I want to gauge you guys and see what you think is going to happen in terms of who the starter will be week 1. And if you're feeling bold, make a prediction with your WK1 or WK8. Even if it is WK8, tell me if you think it's going to be Zach Wilson or Jared Stidham. I'd be interested to know. Next week, we'll jump into more of the draft, more of the results from it. I'm excited also about the edge rusher we got out of Utah. I'm from Utah. Go Utes. So there's some other interesting picks there. I think there's some good tells of what we're trending towards this year, and we'll dive deeper into it next week. But for now, let's just be excited about Bo Nix and Troy Franklin. Again, I'm Devin, signing off for Buffet Sports. If you want to see more of us or more of me, you can catch the rest of our shows that come out during the week, or just see our short form on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at buffet.sports. Again, I'm Devin, and you're watching Breakfast with the Broncos on Buffet Sports. Ciao. Quick little side note here. I just love the fact that Sean Payton jebaited the Vikings into JJ McCarthy, and even still, they thought he'd fall to them at 11, and he still got them to jump up 1 pick because I don't know. I guess I think I was talking about Sean Payton actively jebaiting the Vikings, and I love it. He's a tease. Pause. That's not going in. I'll leave it in. Oh God.